Have you ever taken a practice LSAT or an official LSAT and just struggled with the time and not been able to finish the last few questions? Well, if so, no worries. You might be able to apply for accommodations and get double time, time and a half, and actually have more time for all of the questions. So today we're going to talk about how you can qualify for this and how you can apply for this as well. Before we actually delve into how you apply for the accommodations and what the accommodations are that you are applying for, the big ticket question is, can I qualify? So I'm just going to run through a few different scenarios that could qualify you for some of these accommodations that we're going to talk about. So one is like any cognitive or learning disability, for example, like dyslexia, dyscalculia, ADHD, some type of auditory or like non-verbal learning disorder, also sensory disabilities, so visual, hearing impairments, any neurological or psychological disorder, so autism, traumatic brain injury, epilepsy, multiple sclerosis, depression, PTSD, general anxiety disorder, that could also pertain. Any physical disabilities, so like chronic migraines, mobility impairments, diabetes, like maybe if you need multiple breaks for insulin management, lupus, those are all different scenarios that you could apply for accommodations. Now, that's not an exhaustive list, so definitely if you think that you could be eligible, reach out to LSAC or just submit an application and see if they accept you. But that's a few of them that you could use to apply. So first step is go to Google, type in LSAT accommodations. You're going to scroll down until you get to the LSAC website. So we're just going to go ahead and click on the first link here. Once you jump over to this link, you will scroll down a little bit more until you get to their policy and guidelines. These three links are going to be most important. The first one is how to submit the accommodation request. The next one is accommodations that might be available. And then the next one is the documentation required. So we're going to start with this first one here, accommodations that might be available, but then we're going to touch on the other two as well. So first and foremost, up here, there are items that you do not need pre-approval for. So it could be, helpful to click on that pre-approved item list just in case you're unsure if you need approval or not. But the most important thing is jumping on down here to the testing accommodations that might be available. So we have extended time. You're able to get time and a half, also double time. You're able to get additional breaks between multiple choice sections. So there's 4 sections on the test and you're able to get additional breaks in between those. Now you are also able to apply for stop-start breaks. So it means within sections, taking a stop and pausing the timer, taking a breather. You can also have Braille, tactile manipulatives, a human reader. So if you need someone to auditorily read you the essays in the stimulus, a scribe. So that's for the LSAT essay if you need someone to actually write it down for you. A permission to stand and sit periodically throughout the test. Permission to walk or stretch. Permission to read or speak aloud. I know a lot of times people, when they're reading aloud, it helps them understand the passage a little bit better. So unfortunately, this isn't allowed on the test, but you can get permission to do so. And then food to be permitted at your workstation. There's also alternative testing formats. So like we mentioned before, if you do need Braille, if you need pen and paper, because right now the exam is online and you're not able to use the pen and paper. So if you do need a pen and paper and like the Scantron format, you're able to have that. Can have that in regular print, and you can also have it in large print if you're visually impaired. And then we also have the writing sample on the paper and pencil format as well. Now, do keep in mind too, if you see something, or I should say, if you don't see an accommodation that you're like, okay, this would be really helpful, I do suggest still submitting a request asking for that. So meaning you maybe can submit a request with extended time, but then also write in there that the removal of the experimental section could be helpful because the exam is very long and tedious for you, or really anything that you could think of. It can't hurt to write it. I have had so many students that have, had the removal of the experimental section, and it's not even an accommodation on here. So really anything that you could think of, feel free to put it on here, put it on your request. And that's a great segue because now we're going to talk about how you can actually apply for this. So in order to apply, you do have to already be registered for a test date. So you can't do this if you're not. So you're going to go to your LSAT JD account. You're going to see up at the top here, there is this button for the LSAT, and you're going to click on that. Now, if you have not already registered for the test, I want you to first register for the test via here. But if you've already done that, you could jump on over to request or modify accommodations. So when we click on that, it's going to bring you on over to this screen. Step one is just gathering all your accommodations information. So first, seeing what items are already pre-approved if you even need to go through this process. The next is getting evidence for your disability. So this could basically be some type of documentation of the disability, like an IEP, maybe a 504 plan, documentation from like a medical professional. So it does walk through. Oh, also prior accommodations. So if you got prior accommodations on, let's say, the SAT, ACT, that's great. You could submit that as well. So that's all of like the different types of documentation. Now you don't have to submit all of these documentations if you have one or two of these. Now, if you do have all, that's great, because it's just going to heighten your chances that you're going to get approved. But those are the different documentations. You're also going to submit a statement of need. So a statement of need is basically you just asking for what you need. Now, this is the spot that you want to include additional time, extra breaks, standing, sitting, whatever type of accommodation you need here. You're going to write that in this short little blurb. And also, this is your opportunity if you have other things that you want to request. Now, don't go crazy with your request because you want to make sure everything gets approved. But if you do want to ask for removal of the experimental section, or maybe something that I didn't even think of, you could add an extra sentence or two in there. Obviously make the bulk of it requesting something that they offer, but it can't hurt to say, in addition, it could be helpful to have blah, 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 right? And add that in. And you're going to need to format this a little bit different based off of category 1, category 2, and category 3. So definitely suggest to read through this to just see the exact documentation that you need depending on what you're applying for. And then you're going to click on request accommodations. Now, once you click request accommodations, then it's going to bring you to the candidate form that you're going to need to fill out. And here, unfortunately, it's not letting me go to that next step simply because I am not signed up for a test. So remember at the beginning, I mentioned that in order for you to go through all these steps, you do need to be signed up for an LSAC, or an LSAT, I should say. And then here, you're going to fill out that candidate form. Then you're going to jump on over to the evidence and submit that. And then step 4, finalize the request. Just make sure that everything's up to par and submit it. You do want to submit this, I'd say 4 to 6 weeks prior to your test. So like really try to get, if you know that you're going to be signing up for a test in a couple months, start gathering all of this information, because then the moment that you sign up, you can then go ahead and submit. Thanks so much for watching. And if you want other LSAT tips, tricks, and strategies, feel free to subscribe down below.